I owed money to loan sharks, and now they're blackmailing me and threatening to kill my family. Hey everyone, I'm Gordon. I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these Reddit drama stories, but here I am, neck deep in shit I never imagined I'd be in. It all started innocently enough, like just a small loan to get by. It's funny how quickly a small problem can spiral into a life-threatening disaster. Anyway, here's my story. A couple of years ago, I was riding high. I had a decent job, a loving wife named Zoe, and our adorable little girl, Emma. Life was pretty good, but then the economy took a nosedive, and I lost my job. Zoe was working part-time, but it wasn't enough to cover all the bills. We were scraping by, and I felt like a total failure. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was going to keep a roof over our heads. One night, I was at a local bar, trying to drown my worries in a pint of beer. That's where I met Tony. Tony seemed like a decent guy, He was friendly, bought me a couple of drinks, and listened to me vent about my problems. He said he could help me out with a loan to get back on my feet. No strings attached, he said. Just pay me back when you can. I should have known better. I should have seen the red flags. But I was desperate, and Tony was offering a lifeline, so I took the money. It wasn't much at first, just enough to cover the bills for a couple of months. But as time went on, the interest piled up. I tried to make payments, but it was never enough. And then the threat started. At first, it was just phone calls. Tony would call me, reminding me of my debt. His tone was friendly, but there was an edge to it that made my skin crawl. Hey, Gordon, just a reminder about that payment. Don't forget, okay? But as the weeks went by and I fell further behind, the calls got more intense. He started calling at all hours, leaving threatening messages when I didn't answer. I remember one message vividly. It was the middle of the night, and my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Zoe stirred beside me, mumbling in her sleep. I grabbed my phone and saw Tony's name on the screen. My heart sank. I knew I had to answer. Gordon. Tony's voice was cold and menacing. You're really starting to piss me off. I want my money. If you don't pay up, there's going to be consequences. Do you understand? I stammered out an apology, promising to get the money together, but he wasn't satisfied. Promises don't mean shit, Gordon. I want my money, and I want it now, or else. I hung up, my hands shaking. Zoe woke up, sensing my distress. What's wrong, honey? She asked, her voice thick with sleep. Nothing, I lied. Just work stuff. Go back to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. How the hell was I going to get out of this mess? I thought about going to the police, but what could I tell them? That I borrowed money from a loan shark and now he was threatening me? They'd probably laugh me out of the station. The next day, I tried to focus on finding a job, any job, but it was like the whole world was against me. Rejections piled up, and my desperation grew. Tony's threats hung over me like a dark cloud, suffocating me. I started avoiding his calls, but that only made things worse. One evening, I came home to find a note taped to my front door. It was from Tony. We need to talk. Now. My stomach churned with fear. I couldn't avoid him any longer. I had to face him. I drove to the address Tony had given me, a seedy bar on the outskirts of town. The place was dimly lit, filled with the stench of stale beer and smoke. I spotted Tony in a corner booth, flanked by two burly guys who looked like they could snap me in half without breaking a sweat. Tony looked up as I approached, a cold smile spreading across his face. Gordon, so nice of you to join us, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Have a seat. I sat down, my heart pounding in my chest. Tony, I'm trying my best to get the money. I just need a little more time. He leaned forward, his eyes boring into mine. Time? You've had plenty of time, Gordon. I'm tired of waiting. You owe me, and I want my money. Now. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. I don't have it, Tony. Please, just give me a little more time. I promise I'll pay you back. Tony's smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure rage. He slammed his fist on the table, making me jump. Promises! That's all I ever get from you, Gordon. Promises! Well, I'm done with promises. You're going to pay me back, one way or another. He gestured to the two goons beside him, and they stood up, cracking their knuckles. My blood ran cold. I knew I was in deep shit. Please, Tony, I begged. I'll get the money. Just don't hurt me. Tony leaned back, a cruel smile on his lips. Oh, I'm not going to hurt you, Gordon. But if you don't pay up soon, I might have to pay a visit to your lovely wife and daughter. You wouldn't want anything to happen to them, would you? My heart stopped. The thought of Tony and his thugs going after Zoe and Emma made me sick to my stomach. No, please, leave them out of this. I'll get the money, I swear. Tony nodded, satisfied. Good. You have 1 week, Gordon. 1 week to get me my money, or else. I stumbled out of the bar, my mind reeling. 1 week. How the hell was I supposed to come up with that kind of money in 1 week? I drove home in a daze, trying to figure out a plan, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see a way out. I spent the next few days in a haze of panic and desperation. I tried everything I could think of to get the money. I pawned everything of value, maxed out my credit cards, even begged friends and family for loans. But it still wasn't enough. Zoe knew something was wrong. She could see the fear in my eyes, the stress etched into my face. Gordon, what's going on? She asked one night as we sat in the living room. You've been acting strange for weeks now. Please talk to me. I couldn't keep lying to her. She deserved to know the truth. Zoe, I'm in trouble. Big trouble. Her eyes widened with concern. What do you mean? What kind of trouble? I took a deep breath and told her everything. About losing my job, borrowing money from Tony, and the threats he'd made. She listened in stunned silence, her face growing paler with each word. Oh my God, Gordon, she whispered. What are we going to do? I don't know, I admitted, feeling more helpless than ever. I've tried everything, but I can't get the money together. And if I don't pay him back by the end of the week... I couldn't finish the sentence. The thought of Tony hurting Zoe or Emma was too much to bear. Zoe took my hand, her grip tight. We'll figure something out. We have to, for Emma's sake. Azena, her determination gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way out of this nightmare. We spent the next few days brainstorming ideas, reaching out to everyone we knew, trying to scrape together every last cent. But no matter how hard we tried, it still wasn't enough. The deadline loomed closer, and my fear grew with each passing day. Tony's calls became more frequent, more threatening. I was running out of time, and I knew it. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I got a call from Zoe's brother, Mike. He'd heard about our situation and offered to lend us the money. It wasn't enough to pay off the entire debt, but it was a start. I met with Tony, handing over the money Mike had lent us. This is all I have right now, I told him, my voice shaking. I'll get the rest, I promise. Tony took the money, his expression unreadable. This buys you a little more time, Gordon, but don't think for a second that you're off the hook. I want the rest of my money, and I want it soon. Or else. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and dread. I'd bought us a little more time, but the clock was still ticking, and I knew Tony wouldn't wait forever. The extra time Mike's loan bought us was a blessing, but it wasn't enough. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, knowing one misstep could send us plummeting into disaster. I worked odd jobs, did everything I could to scrape together more money, but it was never enough. Tony's threats loomed over me like a dark cloud. I could see the strain it was putting on Zoe, too. She tried to stay strong, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Emma, bless her little heart, was oblivious to the chaos around her. Her innocence was the only thing keeping me sane. One evening, just as the sun was setting, there was a knock on our door. My heart skipped a beat. Zoe looked at me, fear flashing in her eyes. I nodded, trying to reassure her as I went to answer the door. Tony stood there, his face twisted in a cruel smile. Gordon, we need to talk. Her face
I stepped
immediately
outside,
changed.
closing the door
Concern
behind me.
and confusion mixing
Tony,
in her
I'm doing
eyes.
my best.
What about
I'll get you the
Bram?
rest of the money,
She
I
asked,
swear.
clearly worried.
He shook
I
his
took a deep
head,
breath
his
and told her
expression
everything.
hardening.
Every
Your
disgusting
best isn't good
detail.
enough, Gordon.
Her face went
I'm
through a
tired of
range
waiting.
emotions. Shock.
Before I could
disbelief,
react, Tony
anger.
grabbed me by the
But
collar
when I
and shoved
finished-
me against the wall. You think I'm playing games? You think I'm someone you can fuck with? I struggled to break free, but he was too strong. Please, Tony, I'm trying. Just give me a little more time. He let go of me, his eyes cold and calculating. Time's up, Gordon. If you don't have my money by tomorrow, I'm coming after your family, and I promise you, it won't be pretty. I watched as he walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. Tomorrow, I had until tomorrow to come up with the money, or my family would pay the price. Desperation clawed at me, and I knew I had to do something drastic. I spent the night scouring the internet, looking for any way to get quick cash. That's when I stumbled upon an old contact from my past, a guy named Dave who used to run in some shady circles. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but I was out of options. I called Dave, explaining my situation. He agreed to meet me, and I drove to a dingy warehouse on the outskirts of town. Dave was there, looking rougher than I remembered. Gordon, long time no see. What brings you to my neck of the woods? I explained my predicament, and he listened, nodding thoughtfully. I might be able to help you, but it's going to cost you. Are you sure you're ready to do whatever it takes? I nodded, desperation overriding any sense of caution. I don't have a choice, Dave. I need the money. Dave smirked, pulling out a briefcase and opening it to reveal stacks of cash. This should cover your debt, but remember, Gordon, this isn't a gift. You'll owe me, and I expect to be paid back with interest. I took the money, feeling a mix of relief and dread. I was trading one devil for another, but at least I had a chance to save my family. I drove to Tony's place, my hands shaking as I handed over the money. He counted it, nodding in satisfaction. Looks like you came through after all, Gordon. You're off the hook, for now. I left Tony's place, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. But I knew this wasn't the end. I still had a debt to pay, and Dave wasn't someone to take lightly. But for now, my family was safe, and that was all that mattered. As I drove home, I thought about the choices I'd made, the mistakes that had led me here. I didn't know what the future held, but I was determined to do whatever it took to keep my family safe. I owed them that much and more. Thanks for listening to my story, Reddit. It's been a hell of a ride, and I'm still figuring things out. But one thing's for sure, I'm not giving up. Not now. Not ever.